And while we're applauding, we'll keep applauding. We welcome Ryan Correia, and the LVUSD is going to present to us tonight a special presentation I've seen a couple times. I know Alicia and I got the pleasure of seeing him at AE Wright on vaping, one of the most serious concerns we have as parents nowadays.
Well, Mayor Shapiro and members of the council, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm honored to be here tonight and honored to be talking about some of the great things we're doing within Las Virgenes and our partnerships within the community to address the vaping epidemic. My name is Ryan Correia. I am one of 3 deans of student safety and wellness that the Las Virgenes Unified School District employs. My position was made possible by the Department of Justice Prop 56 grant that Las Virgenes was one of 5 school districts in the state of California last year to receive. So based off of that grant, we funded 3 positions to really focus in on addressing the issue of vaping from multiple perspectives. A little bit about me. I was born and raised here. I went to all LVUSD schools, Yerba Buena, Lindero Canyon Middle School, Agora High School, and I did my undergraduate studies at UCLA. When I stepped into this position, it was very important to me to give back to my former school district because I'm an LVUSD family as well. I've got 2 young daughters who go to school in the district and a wonderful wife who runs the International Baccalaureate program at Agora High School. So when I was thinking about the importance of what we're talking about, it really hits home to me as a parent. Part of my job is education. Now, education, getting in front of every student within our district, talking about what the realities of vaping are. We've been doing it for 2 years now, but if you've been watching the news lately, you know that the conversation has changed dramatically. Not only do we speak with every student organization, but we speak with local PFCs, anybody who's willing to have us, we're happy to spread the message. We've got wonderful partnerships with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and the juvenile team. We happen to have gone out with Officer De Mateo today in some of our sting operations, and we'll talk about exactly what we're doing with that. If you were like me, I'm sure since the beginning of the school year, you've turned on the news on a day-to-day basis and you've seen headlines about vaping illnesses. You've seen talk about bootleg products that are being marketed to our students. Sadly, you've seen the first reported deaths associated with vaping. And if you look up here, you'll continue to see the headlines as they come in daily. Sadly, I give this presentation multiple times a week, and every week I have to adjust the statistics because they continue to rise. There are proactive things that we're doing across the country to make sure that we're banning vaping and certain flavors. Proactive states like Massachusetts banning the sale of all vaping products, and the wonderful things the city of Calabasas has done themselves to address the epidemic. But it continues to raise on, and the death toll continues to rise. Most notably, our highest numbers as of date, 39 deaths, over 2,000 individuals in hospitals associated with vaping-related, lung-related illnesses. It's a topic that needs to be addressed from a community perspective. I'll talk about what we're doing within the schools, but I'd love to talk about how we as a community can come together and address the issues that are at hand. Most importantly, I wanted to start with something that you may have seen recently as you're watching a Sunday night football game or when you're watching TV in general, is some of the new advertisements, the anti-vaping advertisements that are really hammering home what's going on today. To see more and more of these types of anti-vaping advertisements because the governor allocated $20 million for these anti-vaping PSAs to be put out. And I think it's essential for parents and community members to take heart when they see these things and begin to have conversations with their children. Part of the biggest thing that I do is I talk to parent and community organizations about what is out there, the awareness piece. And it all starts with these devices. Now, if you look up here, some of you may have seen these devices before. For some of you, they may seem completely new and out of the ordinary. This device right here is called the Juul, by far the most popular of the e-cigarettes or vaping devices. And to the unassuming eye, this looks like a fancy piece of technology. This looks like a flash drive. If you don't know what this is, you don't necessarily know what you're looking for. And it comes in all different shapes and sizes, and it's accessible just about everywhere. And sadly, this little thing right here is the equivalent to a pack of cigarettes. And we'll talk about how perceptions are a little bit different when you look at this as a piece of technology, and young individuals see technology as something that is safe. They see technology as something that they're familiar with. They don't see it as necessarily harmful. This can be acquired at any gas station, drugstore, liquor store in the community for roughly $30 to $40, depending on what you purchase. Sadly, there are other devices that look just like it. If to the unassuming eye, this looks like a piece of candy. This is a disposable vape stick. It's the equivalent of a pack of cigarettes, and this one is flavored like blueberry. When we talk about flavoring, there's no way in the world tobacco companies can't say that they're marketing to children. When you look at some of the other devices up there, they are refillable. They are designed to look like something that is unassuming and something that is safe. And the tough part about it is that when you have something like the Juul that has 75% of the market share, and you know one of these pods contains roughly 1 pack of cigarette, kids look at this and don't see harm. But what we're trying to do is change the perception of what they see. If you can look at this little pod and see 20 spent cigarettes, you automatically can associate the harm that goes along with that. But until we make that clear to everybody in the community what this really does, that's one of the battles we face. So our education efforts through the school district and with the local parent communities is really important to us, and that's why we're out here sharing this message. Sadly, like I mentioned earlier, accessibility is an all-time high. You can go to any liquor store, any drugstore. You can hop on Amazon and purchase a vape product. You can hop on eBay. For those of you who are familiar with the social media platform Snapchat, that is where our middle school kids and our underage kids are going to acquire these products through drug dealers. And sadly, there are dealers that are preying on our young students. Every one of the retailers that you've seen up there, we've conducted sting operations with local law enforcement. We're on our 5th sting operation just of this school year. And today alone, 2 of those establishments that we visited sold to our underage decoys. So we're trying our best to make sure that we're getting in and we're identifying those retailers, but it's going to take a community approach to make sure that we're trying to shut down those that are repeat offenders. And sadly, the ones up there are examples of repeat offenders in our community, whether that be Calabasas, Ogora, or Westlake. Snapchat is another one that we want to make sure we talk to our parents about. If your student or your child is on Snapchat, there are drug dealers that prey on kids on Snapchat. And for those of you who are not familiar, you can post a snap of what products you have available, and those right there are THC cartridges that are used to vape THC, the active ingredient in marijuana. Dealers will advertise what they have, prices, delivery charges, and they will deliver them directly to you. And sadly, when you look at Snapchat, there are more and more dealers. One thing that we do like to point out to parents is some dealers like to use the little plug emoji to identify themselves as a dealer, so kids could reach out and arrange a meeting place for those individuals. Bringing this type of information to parents is really vital to helping them be a part of the community approach to shutting this down. Another PSA I'd like to quickly share talks about the effects, and these are effects that we can naturally see in our teenagers as they are approaching a different perspective in their life, but it's also a sign of nicotine addiction. This was a 60-second PSA that's designed to really highlight the risks of what's going on when a young brain becomes addicted to nicotine.
Okay, all right. What kind of meeting?
Said I don't want to talk about it.
Wait. Trey, what are you doing?
Hey. Yes! Yes!
Wait,
What is going on with you?
get out!
Andy!
Get out of my room! Get out!
Andy! You're not lying. I didn't say anything. Yes, you did. No, you didn't.
As a parent, it's devastating to see the effect that nicotine can have on a young person. When you think about it, what it means, it is irritability from withdrawal, it is headaches, it is mood disorders, learning difficulties, and anxiety. And sadly, these are some of the signs that we want parents and community members to look out for when they see changes in personality and changes in behaviors within their young students and their children at home. It's really brain poison, and sadly, these kids are being hooked. And when you look at the statistics, they're being hooked on flavored products. 4 out of 5 kids who talked about using tobacco products started on a flavored product, cotton candy, bubble gum, something that was marketed to a younger demographic. And the new face of poison looks like a high-tech piece of technology that kids are familiar and safe with. We show these things so parents are aware. If they see these things in their children's rooms, they can begin having the conversations and talking about what's out there. We often get asked, what can we do to help? What can we do to be involved? I encourage parents alike to have discussions with their children about the realities of vaping. CNN did an amazing little docuseries about the vaping epidemic and conversations to have with your children. There are organizations like Parents Against Vaping and E-Cigarettes that are always looking for new participants and always looking for individuals to become involved. If I had one wish, it would be for every parent out there to watch the Vaporize documentary. It came out in July of this past summer. It was on CNBC, and you can access it through any your cable providers, Hulu, Netflix, iTunes. We are hoping to do a screening of this particular documentary in January as part of our anti-vaping month within the LVUSD. We will be sure to invite everybody here to that. One thing that we do preach is the See Something, Say Something campaign. It is so vitally important for us to get information in so we can disseminate that to our teachers and make sure that we are doing our due diligence and sharing in the fight against this epidemic. See Something, Say Something brought us Snapchat. It allowed us to work with law enforcement to identify dealers and now work with the narcotics teams to make sure that we're taking them down. We also encourage anybody to give us information via WeTip and our WeTip hotline if you'd like to do it anonymously. We've got great resources through our district. Our Community360.me website has an entire page devoted to Breathe Clean, which is our campaign. It talks all about everything a parent or student would need to know about addiction, as well as vaping and e-cigarettes. We're happy to share those with you. And I'd also like to highlight some opportunities that we have coming up. We have a reality party in which we reenact what it's like to be a young person at a party, and we bring parents through that scenario. That's coming up later in February. We'll make sure that you guys are familiar with that as well. But more than anything, we are here to share what we're doing. We're here to make sure that our parent communities and all community members are aware of what's going on, and we can do our best to make sure we keep our kids safe. We welcome the opportunity to speak in at any venue, and we're happy to be in partnership with the City of Calabasas, and we thank you for all your efforts as well.
Ryan, thank you very, very much. Any council comments or questions? Yes. Councilmember Bizachi.
A couple questions. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this, and I've seen many of these commercials. They're very effective. I had asked staff for some kind of report, and I'm glad you brought this back, but I do eventually want to see something legislative that we can do in this area. My question is, if you know, is the amount of vaping by underage or minors, is it higher in this area than other areas, or lower, the same amount? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, when you take a look at metrics from, Las Virgenes students fill out a California Healthy Kids survey, and when you compare our numbers to national numbers, we're lower, but on par. So national numbers issued by the Department of Health, as an example, 18% of 8th graders have tried it. 32% of 10th graders have admitted to trying it within the past 30 days. 38% of seniors in high school have all shared that type of information. Our numbers are slightly lower, but it continues to be something that you see on a day-to-day basis, and sadly, it's virtually undetectable in certain states. Kids are very smart and savvy about what they're doing, where they're doing it, and when. And it's been communication like the ones we've had with the mayor, as well as like the security department at Caruso Enterprises, who runs the Commons. We've been able to share information to talk about areas that we know are of high traffic for these individuals, and make sure that we have extra enforcement in place and ways for us to partner. But yes, numbers are on the rise, and hopefully with some of the ad campaigns that we see, there'll be better awareness to the realities that these young individuals are facing as they're putting these things into their bodies.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Protem Weintraub.
Thank you so much. This is my second time seeing the presentation, and I continue to just get more and more information. I was wondering if you can just address two things that I hear throughout the community. One, are there like vape detection? Are there some sensors in the bathrooms at the schools that are supposed to go off, or is there anything like that when people are vaping in the bathrooms at the schools?
Be happy to talk to that.
And then that was my first question. And then the second thing is, I hear from a lot of parents that their students will try to use the bathrooms at the schools and are constantly seeing kids vaping. What should people be doing in those instances?
To address the first question, part of the grant we received last year allowed us to put vape detectors in all of our secondary schools. The detectors send off notifications to administrators when they do go off. The notifications are sent via text message as well as email. The problem is, by the time somebody usually gets down there, it's hard to either catch somebody in the act themselves, or there's multiple individuals in that particular area. But what they have allowed us to do is put better campus supervision at some bathrooms that were to go off a little more often. That has allowed us to decrease the number of notifications we've been getting. They have served as a good deterrent, and we continue to monitor them on a day-to-day basis and take a look at which bathrooms, as an example, go off more often, so we can make sure we have adequate campus supervision there. If a student walks into a bathroom and there is something going on, that's why we talk about the importance of seeing something and saying something. The more information we can have, the better we can serve our young individuals. And if it's a parent who gets that information and wants to share it with an administrator, or if a parent wants to go onto our WeTip hotline and anonymously share that information with us, we take every tip that we get very seriously, and we work to make sure that we try our best to mitigate the incidents.
And then last thing, just for the people watching at home, in the presentation at AE, right, you spoke about what people are doing, hiding things in the hydro flasks. Can you just discuss that? I thought
Sure.
that was a valuable information.
Absolutely. That was another tip that we had received, is that occasionally students will use some type of a insulated water bottle to put their vape device in. So they'll be able to carry it around school, as an example, or say, I want to go refill my water bottle. They've also used it at home because it's unassuming. If a parent sees just a water bottle on their student's desk, they're not going to think twice about what it is. But in reality, if you go over and give it a shake, sometimes there's something that rattles in there that is not necessarily an ice cube. So pieces of information that come in like that, we're able to share those types of things with our teachers, and we're able to keep better eyes on it. But it's information like that came from the See Something, Say Something campaign. And that's why it's really a community approach to this. The more information we get and the more information we can share out, the better we can combat this.
Great. Thank you again for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Mauer.
I wanted to thank you. That was a very comprehensive presentation about the program. I have a question. Can you recommend a one-stop website for parents or people? I work with 18 to 25-year-olds where we can go to learn more and get the latest and support what you're doing.
I would love for parents to visit community360.me and click on the button that says Breathe Clean. That is where we have put together a ton of different resources for parents as well as students who want information about what devices are out there, what to do if you're addicted, what to look for. I'd say that's probably the most comprehensive, the one that I'd like to recommend, because we put it together ourselves. Any parent can reach out to me directly via email if they'd like that information, and I'm happy to share that as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gaines.
Yes, I noticed one of the headlines in the presentation, I think it said Massachusetts bans vape products or something. What is the status of prohibitions or bans or other legislation, both nationally, state level, and city level?
There's a lot of different conversation about what's going to happen. There's talks about banning vaping in Los Angeles. There's talks about federal bans on vaping altogether. There seems to be a lot of unknown. You'll see companies like Juul in efforts to try to mitigate some of what's coming as they've pulled certain flavors off the market. Juul used to sell anywhere between 12 to 15 flavors. Now they only sell 2 flavors, which is menthol and tobacco. So we're seeing some type of progress, but it's really going to come down to a federal decision as to what to do with these particular devices. It depends on the day. You know, the news stories will vary based on some of the things we see coming out.
Yeah, I imagine that we'll have a future agenda item to talk about this, and I don't know whether the city attorney has any information or as a quick piece of information on what are the limits of the city's jurisdiction in being able to ban or prohibit this kind of activity.
Right now, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Gaines, not much different than what Mr. Correia just mentioned. That it's in a state of flux, that both cities and state agencies are looking at banning vaping devices. You might remember we were one of the first cities that included a ban on e-cigarettes in our secondhand smoke prevention ordinance. So we would certainly be amenable to looking at the scope of the city, exercise of the city's police power to either ban the sale, which is what some cities are looking at, or even looked at taking it a step beyond.
I'd also like to comment, one of the best things we can ask for the city's support in is as we do run these undercover sting operations and we see these retailers and the ones that repeat sale to our minors, if we can lean in from a city perspective to levy whatever fines we possibly can, or take a look at revoking business licenses or tobacco sales agreement. Sadly, there are retailers within a mile of our schools here in Calabasas that continue to sell, and we pass all that information on to the city ordinance officers.
Well, that's covered in our ordinance.
Yeah.
They should be, I'm assuming, I did have one other question on the 2 sting operations that you mentioned failed today, was it?
Today we visited 14 retailers, and 2 of them sold to our underage decoy, and
Were
both
they
of those
here?
were in the city of Calabasas.
In the city? Okay, see, they should fall under that ordinance.
Can you please name them?
They are gas stations, and images of those stations were all up on those slides earlier. I'm sure in an off the mic we can make sure that you get all that information. And that information has already been passed over to the city ordinance officer in Calabasas.
Thank you very much, Ryan, for being here and the presentation. It's important. It's more and more important. I mean, each night, like you said, we turn on the news, there's something else out there. And it starts young, and they start with getting our youth addicted to flavors, and it continues and continues. So it's something we all need to be aware of and continue to work together. And we appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.